to the Cradle of Filth.
I mean, obviously the Nihil 1 CD was Cradle of Filth's Principle of Evil Made Flesh, which was actually supposed to be a demo but came out on vinyl. And then obviously Cradle went through the roof with the show at the Marquee in London.
So, you know, I saw it from the beginning. I saw it in the songwriting, you know, the composition. But yeah, I knew, you know, when I heard the demo, this is a band that knows what they're talking about. They're, you know, they're able to play, you know, they have ideas. You know, they've really just, you know, sat down and they've really worked out, you know, to an nth degree what they're doing, you know, and how it came across was, you know, it was really professional. I didn't want to tell them what to do, but I wanted to give my own impetus into the band, you know, to perhaps give them a bit of edge, make it a spectacle, make it something that people would remember. So by having, you know, shadowy figures at the back of the stage with axes and so forth doing their performances, you know, it lended weight to the performance that people would go, oh, you know, what's going on here? You know, we had, you know, exotic dancers in, you know, in leather and PVC dancing at their earlier gigs with whips and so forth. Well, from my perspective, when I was still with the band, I did have a big problem with using animal carcasses and that, as I just thought it perhaps reeked of you know, staleness, like Alice Cooper and so on and so forth. And initially, you know, at the early gigs, I actually used to make my own stage blood because I'd found the sort of perfect recipe of just throwing a load of chemicals, mixing up in a huge vat, and we'd just get litres of the stuff which we could use on stage in chalices or just to cover people. So obviously the problem with real blood is it stinks and it attracts flies, and you know, it's not very nice, especially if you get it in your mouth. And you know, when you want to go on stage, and you know, you want to pour blood over yourself, over your chest, through your hair, whatever, which the band did, the last thing you want to do is be running around screaming because you get, like, you know, diseased blood in your mouth or whatever, will come down with something. So I tried to impress on the band that perhaps using real blood, you know, was a bad idea. I mean, I think one of the times we did try was when we were in Portugal and we didn't have any stage blood, and I took a girl around with us who spoke Portuguese, and we went around all these sort of slaughterhouses asking for blood, and they just looked at us like we were mad. I remember, you know, that we used to conduct rituals, you know, using Andrea or using myself. We'd have an opening, you know, to the early gigs where someone would come on, do an invocation and pass a chalice around, you know, light some candles, burn some incense, you know. As far as Andrea was concerned, because at the time she was the girlfriend of, you know, a good friend of mine, I knew that she did exotic dancing, and so that's why I asked her if she'd liked initially to appear on stage at Cradle of Filth, and, you know, as one, you know, part of the spectacle. And then, you know, she showed a keen, you know, interest. At that time, she was into chaos magic and Satanism, you know, and she was very keen to kind of add her own kind of voice, as it were, or perspective to the band. And, you know, I guess she was a sort of silent member, as it were. I mean, she appeared on the first album, you know, she appeared in photo shoots that we did. So yeah, she had, you know, some, you know, influence. When the tour with Emperor was organised, I went on that with them. Often I was looking after merchandising or making sure they sound checked, looking after money, making sure that they were paid, or being there to give them money for petrol and so on and so forth, you know. So really I was just a glorified tour manager.
We were doing a gig in Manchester, in Rock World, and it was the first time we'd played at Rock World, so we didn't exactly know where it was. So we, in our transit van, got up to Manchester, and we're driving round and round the centre of Manchester, unable to find this place, and we're like, well, it must be here somewhere. Driving up the road, see this guy walking up the road with "Fuck Your God" emblazoned on his back, so we're like, well, he'll know where we're playing tonight. So we pulled over, and it was Rish, and we're like, well, you know, do you know where Rock World is? And he's like, yeah, are you playing there tonight? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, well, I'll show you where it is if I can get in your van, sort of thing. So he got in the van, came to Rockwool with us, came in, helped us unload the van, got talking to him, got on really well with him. Rish eventually came down south and worked with the band as a guitar tech, and at one period where my brother had a bit of a sabbatical from the band, Rish came in and played guitar. I mean, he came over to Portugal and played with us. The first gig we did there was a festival in a place called Penafiel, which was with Gorefest and Hypocrisy and loads of bands, and it was a really good laugh. We all had, like, all the bands were booked into the same hotel, and it was just a complete riot in the hotel for the 3 days or 2.5 days, whatever the festival was on, and we were all in the hotel.
It was an open air festival and a bit of Portuguese humour, the open air festival.
I think it was the first ever metal gig that it ever had, and it had caused, you know, some raised eyebrows, because obviously, firstly, Portugal is a deeply religious country, so there were some problems with the church and so forth. But from a public point of view, people were just overawed that, you know, all these bands came to their little town, and we were being stopped in the street by, you know, kids as young as 10 asking for autographs and CDs, and being stopped by an old lady and thanking us for, you know, putting their town on the map.
Portugal was the first country that really took to us in a big way, and we were, I guess, celebrities. I don't like to use the word, but it was the first place where we were very well received. And, you know, when we turned up, the plane landed and there was people in the airport already waiting for us, and we didn't have to get a taxi anywhere. There was cars waiting for us and everything, you know. So, which was a bit of a surprise, because we did more work in Germany than anywhere else probably. So we always imagined that Germany was going to be the country that we would first become a name in our own right.
I remember when I first started working here in early 1996, when I went to see them at the Astoria, and I was really surprised about the whole thing that we got there. And previously you'd see kids once or twice a week in a t-shirt, if that, and you think, oh, Cradle of Filth t-shirt, great. And then you get to the Astoria and it's absolutely packed out with hundreds of corpse paint wearing, spike wearing, leather trousered, long haired. It was great. I just didn't expect there to be that many people. I was thinking about 200, not 1,500, maybe more. It was amazing. And from then on, the band have just been on the up, I think. Cacophonous' involvement with the whole Cradle of Filth image was mainly to do with the album sleeves. The band themselves have been rooted in the black metal and extreme metal genres from day naught, and obviously their early demo materials really sought after because of that, because they're one of the few bands that actually came in and have stayed as such. I would say that we were responsible for designing the band's logo, which a girl called Jane did actually at the very beginning, and we were also partially responsible for the whole idea of the Chris Bell and Nigel Wingrove photo shoots, because obviously the guy who did all the artwork and art direction was the guy who ran Redemption Films, which I don't know if you know anything about the company, but it's basically the company that reissues a load of Mario Bava films like Mask of Satan, Los Vampiros Lesbos, Lust for a Vampire.
Quelqu'un?
So easily identifiable that Chris Bell was the photographer for that, and we basically, because of his involvement with vampires, took him on. Initially for the cover, it was going to feature a painting over like a vampire woman, like dripping blood from her mouth, but I thought it was a bit tacky. And I remember we were sitting there at our